but the Haitian Revolution has often been portrayed by foreigners, especially at the time, as a moment when enslaved Black people just decided to set everything on fire and rebel. It's like, well, because they organized it. And so that's what I trace in the book, is their organization, which was not just, oh, one day in August 1791 they decided to do this spontaneously. Yeah, that they had been, I call it, it's 2 centuries long, it's organized rebellion, 3 centuries really. I go back to the era of Anakaona, Kaunabo, and I really wanted to think about how the Haitian revolutionaries and 19th century intellectuals wrote and thought about them, rather than just try to make a connection where there wasn't one. And they were the ones who brought forth the story of Anakaona and talked about how it inspired them, of Enrique, of all of these freedom fighters. And I thought, well, no, that is not something that we just set aside. I wanted to explore that. So that's what I set out to do. I mean, it was, Julien Raymond really charted the fact that the Code Noir that the French had instituted to regulate the slave system had regulations whereby white men could convert a Black woman to the woman they're enslaving, mind you, to Catholicism, and then she would be free, and then they could form a quote unquote free family of color. But
and this was necessary because
there weren't really white women in the colony. You have to remember, sea travel was dangerous. It was not certain, that this experiment in the colony was going to work out. So it really weren't in the beginning, in the late 17th century, early 18th century, a lot of white women. But once Saint-Domingue became this thriving, bustling, rich place with theater houses and and people writing about what a magnificent place it's exactly right. It wasn't magnificent for the enslaved people being enslaved there, but the free people were saying, oh, it's so magnificent there. So white women started to come over,
and seafaring got better,
a little better, a little safer maybe. But they come over, and now there's all these free women of color who are oftentimes the rich one in the couple, because they had a rich white father and a free Black mother who owned plantations. They enslaved people. And the white men often did not have money. They were going there to make their fortune. And what better way to make your fortune than to marry a wealthy Black woman, right? So that's what they would do. But the white women got jealous, of course. And so in the kind of social circles, the what I was going to say it in Creole, the noise was running, I just couldn't think of it, not rumor, but all this, you're not really white if you have a Black wife or a free woman of color, or oh, it's so shameful. And those social pressures had an effect. And white men they would marry white women, and they would keep as their quote unquote concubine or mistress women of color, also, of course, forcing enslaved women to have sex with them as well, just to be frank, and have their children and enslave those children, or sometimes free them, manumit them. But so it really created a more, if you can imagine, chaotic kind of society where you still had all of the same things going on that were happening before, lots of intermarrying or interracial exchanges. But now there's all this shame and stigma, and the racism is just amped up to a different degree.